we'll go ahead and get started because
You need
it's
a
supposed to be a
quorum.
bad storm. So
Yes, very
we don't know
bad.
how long we'll be doing this because it may cut off.
As of this moment, we have
Peter.
no one else signed up to testify. We just have the applicant's team. I will keep watch. And
Okay.
Mr. Barron will also notify us if we have someone new. He'll let me know.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. It is 4. We have about a minute. We'll go ahead and get started. Looks like we have a quorum. I see people are having some technical problems. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For now.
I can hear
I'm sorry, Rob.
you.
You can hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I got to figure out how to switch my sound back to my laptop. I done something now. It's coming on my monitor, so I'm all messed up. But anyway, I don't want to mess with it now. You won't hear me at all. Okay, it's 4 o'clock. Can we start recording if we're able? Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today's date is June the 3rd, 2021. We are convening and broadcasting this public hearing by video conferencing. My name is Anthony Hood. Joining me are Vice Chair Miller, Commissioner Shapiro, soon to be Commissioner May, and Commissioner Turnbull. We're also joined by the Office of Zoning Staff, Ms. Sharon Shelley, and our Secretary, Mr. Paul Young, who will be handling all of our virtual operations, and Mr. Jake Redding, who is our legal counsel. Others will introduce themselves at the appropriate time. The virtual public hearing notice is available on the Office of Zoning's website. This proceeding is being recorded by a court reporter, and the platforms used are Webcast Live, WebEx, and YouTube Live. The video will be available on the Office of Zoning's website after the hearing. All persons planning to testify should have signed up in advance and will be called by name at the appropriate time. At the time of sign up, all participants will complete the oath or affirmation required by Subtitle Z 408.7. Accordingly, all those listening on WebEx or by phone will be muted during the hearing, and only those who have signed up to participate or testify will be unmuted at the appropriate time. When called, please state your name and home address before providing your testimony. When you are finished speaking, please mute your audio. If you experience difficulty accessing WebEx or with your telephone call-in or have not signed up, then please call our OZ hotline number at 202-727-5471. If you wish to file written testimony or additional supporting documents during the hearing, then please be prepared to describe and discuss it at the time of your testimony. To the subject of tonight's hearing is Zoning Commission Case 2106. This is a Southeast Federal Center, Parcel H, Zoning Commission Design Review under the Southeast Federal Center overlay for a new 12-story mixed retail and residential building. This hearing will be conducted in accordance with provisions of 11Z DCMR Chapter 4 as follows. Preliminary matters, applicant's case. The applicant has up to 60 minutes. Report of the Office of Planning and District Department of Transportation, report of other government agencies, report of the ANC, testimony of organizations, 5 minutes, and individuals, 3 minutes. And we will hear in the following order from those who are in support, opposition, and undeclared. Then we'll have rebuttal and closing by the applicant. Again, the OZ hotline number is 202-727-5471 for any concerns during this proceeding. At this time, the commission will consider any preliminary matters. Does the staff have any preliminary matters?
The first one is a motion from the applicant requesting a waiver of the requirement for notarization of their posting and maintenance affidavits. So to ask the commission if they would make that waiver for notarization of those affidavits.
Thank you. Michelle, any objections in this Exhibit 10? Any objections to notarization protocols, which especially during this time of COVID? Not seeing any, so we will, no objections. Next, Michelle.
Okay, next would be proffered expert witnesses. Going with the previously approved experts, we have Erwin Andres, previously approved in transportation engineering, and Sean Statler with WDG, previously approved in architecture. If the commission would accept both of them as experts in this case.
Okay, unless
And
I hear an
then-
objection, we will continue that status. No
Okay.
objection, we'll continue that status.
And then those that staff could not find them as approved by the commission, Eric, and I'm probably going to mess up the last name, Vermeulen, as an expert in architecture. The resumes for all of these are at Exhibit 15E. Do you want me to just read them all, or do you want to do one at a time?
It's only two, I think. Three.
Yes.
Landscape architect as well, right?
Yes, so Eric Vermeulen, in architecture, Orna, Best, and, Gabriella Clark, those two for landscape architecture. So it's
Okay,
three.
let's do Mr. Vermeulen first. And again, as Michelle has mentioned, those exhibits are in 15E. Any questions or any concerns about Mr. Vermeulen being an expert in architect? We do have quite a few experts who are being proffered in architecture, so I know we have Mr. Stadler as well. Any objections?
Yeah, well, Mr. Chair, Mr. Stadler is well known to us. So I have no problem there. Mr. Vermeulen, the only problem is I don't know. I don't see the jurisdiction license. I don't see where he's licensed at all as an architect. If he's just studied architecture or he's designed something, is he a designer? But is he a licensed? I don't see a license for him in any.
So
in the
we're going
United
to bring
States.
Mr. Turnbull, I agree. I did look for the licensure. That's what I'm starting to look at for first now. I didn't see it. We can bring him up, but while we're doing that, let's go to landscape architect, not to confuse things, but let's see if we can do the two landscape architectures. Freyfield and Canamar. Hopefully I didn't mess all those up. And again, those are in Exhibit 15E as well.
Well, Ms. Canamar is a licensed landscape architect in 5 jurisdictions: Maryland, Virginia, DC, I think, and she's got several. The other person, Ms. Best, I don't find any kind of a license in any jurisdiction for her.
Okay, so unless my colleagues disagree, we will grant everyone expert status except for Mr. Vermeulen and Miss, I believe it's Orna Best. Any objections? Again, they can provide testimony. I think they have enough on the list that are experts that can present to us, but they can provide testimony unless they, I didn't see Mr. Vermeulen come up, so that's why I want to try to expedite that. So unless I hear an objection, that's the way we'll proceed. Any objections? Mr. Turnbull, are you fine with that process moving forward?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Shapiro and Vice Chair Miller, you all are fine?
I'm fine with it, Mr. Chair.
I'm fine.
Okay, and Commissioner May's not here yet, so he's gonna have to be fine. Okay, so anyway, Michelle, anything else?
No, sir. Ready to proceed.
Okay, so we can bring the applicant and his team up. It's Avadable, I believe.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Hood, members of the commission.
Mr. Avadable, you heard the discussion about the expert witnesses. Do you have any pushback for us, or are we good?
No, sir. I think that's fine. While I do believe that that both Mr. Vermeulen and Ms. Best have a long years of practice, we don't have any opposition here, so we're fine proceeding with Mr. Stadler and Ms. Clark as our experts, since they're the local experts.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so Ms. Avadable, you may begin.
Great. Thank you very much. Good
Mr.
afternoon,
Nuttall,
Chairman.
if you had anything from the Netherlands, if they're licensed in the Netherlands and you could show us that, we might consider that then.
I know. I was looking for that and I couldn't find it at my fingertips, but I think we'll just proceed and not worry about it. And next time Mr. Vermeulen is here, we'll bring his license with us.
Yeah, I mean, we would be more than willing to accept a foreign license just as long as we had seen something.
Exactly. I understand. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us. We're here to present a design review for Parcel H in the Yards. This parcel is in the redevelopment zone of the Southeast Federal Center. It's immediately south of Parcel F, which we reviewed with you back in February of this year. Parcel H is located in the SCFC 1B zone. Design review is required here because we're seeking to utilize the additional density and building height that's permitted under the regulations in that zone. We're also seeking flexibility from the 1-to-1 setback requirement for the guardrails on the 6th floor terrace, as well as for the roof structure that's above that fitness center on the 6th floor. As with all of the projects in the Yards, our building design has been informed by feedback from multiple stakeholders through the GSA-led review process, and we're pleased to be here with a design that's been approved by the General Services Administration, as well as endorsed by NCPC and the Commission of Fine Arts. And we're equally pleased to be here with the support from the Office of Planning, DDOT, and ANC 6D. I'd like to turn the presentation over to Michael Odom from Brookfield Properties, who will summarize the program goals and introduce you to Brookfield's development partner on this project.
Good afternoon, commissioners. And thank you, David, and thank you for having us. As David mentioned, my name is Michael Odom. I am with Brookfield Properties. Today we will be presenting our next development parcel in the Yards West neighborhood. It is Parcel H. This parcel is immediately east of Nationals Park. It's bounded by N Street to the north, Yards Place to the east, N Place to the south, and First Street to the west. This parcel will be a residential parcel providing 466 units to the neighborhood, consistent with the other Yards residential parcels. It will be 20% affordable at 50% AMI. That provides 94 affordable units to the neighborhood, including 5 3-bedroom affordable units. There will be 2 levels of below grade parking, as well as 26,000 square feet of ground floor retail, as well as a publicly accessible public courtyard. As David mentioned, we are working with a partner on this project. This partner is Irby. It has been designed and will be marketed as an Irby building. And so with me today, we have Josh Wusnick, who can speak a little bit further to the Irby concept.
Thank you, Michael. I don't see my video. Is everyone able to hear me?
Oh, yes, we're able to hear you, Josh. We're able to hear you.
Apologies, but my video seems to be, there we go. So thank you, Michael. Thank you, commissioners, for having us here this afternoon. My name, as Michael mentioned, is Josh Wesnick. I'm an executive vice president with Iron State Development in Irby. Iron State is one of the parent companies to the Irby brand. We're partnering with Brookfield, as Michael noted. Irby for us is a special development brand that's kind of hatched for us as a concept a little over 10 years ago with a strong intention to take a more thoughtful approach to residential apartment living. We set off to monitor demographic trends and take a deep dive into the future lifestyles within apartment living. We wanted to react to what we saw as sometimes a generic and less inspired development sector, and take some of the keys from the hospitality industry and bring a little more energy to our project. So our focus with the brand is on certain key features. The connections between residents and the community is paramount to the brand. We focus on an inspired design with a strong bias towards fitness and recreation. Indoor and outdoor amenities are part of that function. We'll hear a lot about how they're specifically designed and laid out in this project as our presentation continues. And then maybe less able to put your finger on is the neighborhood vibe that we we try to create as part of these projects. It's, you know, not necessarily an attribute that you put your finger on. I think it's something that we all feel and recognize when we see it, and that's part of one of the cues that we've taken from the hospitality industry and in creating this brand. So in moving forward with that intention, we brought more thought to the programming, the residents' engagement. We actively sponsor events within our projects, try to foster social connections between our residents, the community, our management team. We have public-facing lobbies that include a cafe that's publicly accessible. Our lobbies include not only the essential functions that are necessary within a lobby, mail, package, concierge or doorman, things like that, but they also become community gathering places, Wi-Fi lounges. And in this case, we have a dual benefit of our integrated cafe being accessible from both the street and the internal courtyard. And we'll learn a little bit more about that design as we move forward. We also focus hard on the units themselves and both the light and air that gets within the units, our lighting packages, modern technology. We try to bring in clever touches to storage and other appliances, things like that within the units that are sometimes unique, and took a look at the layouts themselves and tried to create flow and function in a different way than maybe typical in the marketplace and utilize space more efficiently. So we have just about under 3,000 units under management in 7 states. Soon, hopefully, the District of Columbia as well. 5 projects in current operations, 4 that are under construction, and another 8 or 10 that are in our active pipeline at this time. So with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Eric Vermillion, who will introduce you to the architecture from the concept perspective, and then we'll move forward into more details.
Great. And if, Mr. Young, if you could pull up our presentation that we sent along, that would be great. Thank you so much. And we can probably skip ahead a slide or two here to get to the presentation. Great. All right. So Sean or Eric, it's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, commissioners. Sorry for the confusion about the certificate. So I'm pretty sure we'll make that work. I am obviously licensed, of course, here in the Netherlands, and now being a partner and head of architecture of a design firm or architecture firm named Concrete. We're based in Amsterdam. We're 50 people strong. But a lot of our work is actually outside of the Netherlands, and in all of those instances, we always work together with a local architect. So that's why WDG is the architect of record, and we kind of developed and designed this jointly together. The reason that we are involved is that we are, let's say, the designing and concept architects of Urbi as a whole. So next to this project, the projects that Josh just mentioned, which are like a few of them in the greater New York area, we have all designed and also in successful collaboration with local teams. So this is the location of the project, Parcel H, right next to the Nationals Park Stadium. And if you could switch or move forward, please, a page of 2, 3, because this was a little bit part of the introduction that Josh just gave you. So please, next one. And next one. These are all images that you see here are actually part of our already open Urbis and current projects that we are successfully operating right now and have designed successfully. Next, please. So Parcel H, part of the Yard's revised master plan. We are right on the western border of it. What's interesting about that is that that it still holds the grid system of the original L'Enfant plan. So that's also why we really started with this idea. Okay, we want to create this fully city block and make sure that we build all 4 street walls and make them active. Let's say in the spirit of L'Enfant, for that matter. It's a residential building with a fair amount of retail on the ground floor. Next one, please. Like I said, we try to create that city block, which you can see on the right top image, but we did want to, kind of respond obviously to our context and environment. So on the north side and east side of our plot, the rest of the projected buildings, and some are already starting construction soon, is already at the same height. So they will also level, like 12, 13 stories. South of us, the developments are a little bit insecure right now, but on the west side of us, we know we have the stadium and we have a parking lot, which are lower buildings and equivalent probably, like six floors in height. It also is, like by accident, let's say the southwest corner. So what we try to do is, like kind of lower the building. You can see that on the second right image. Try to lower the building on the southwest corner in order to let the daylight in, and also a little bit to exploit the views for our residents. Like kind of over the ballpark and towards the river as well. And by lowering the building and letting sun and daylight into the court, it also helps us to create more additional quality to the court. And ultimately, we decided to make it a public space, which I will speak about a little bit more later on. Then the last image on the bottom, it shows a little bit further, like refining of the massing, with the most important aspects that, like at a certain height along N Street and Yards Place, we set the building back 5 feet, and also along Yards Place, we also took 2 floors off the overall massing to ensure enough daylight and air into Yards Place, which is a little bit of a smaller street in relation to the other streets. Next, please. So here you can see kind of a build-up programmatic-wise and massing-wise. So top left shows the idea of the open courtyard. We'll be looking now, let's say, in bird's eye view, so to speak, from the northeast corner. So the street on the right would be N Street, and the street on the left would be Yards Place. And like I said, we want to create a specific, like designed courtyard that we open up to the public and create something additional to the public realm that is, like in the public's interest. Around the courtyard, and of course facing all the streets, we have as much as we could create, like retail spaces and some amenity spaces for Urbi itself. The small gray block on the left side of that image, middle left image, is along N Place, sorry, which receives all loading, back of house, and parking entrances. And that leaves us, a lot of space, and specifically all the 4 corners, to create retail. So the yellowish color is the retail, and then the blue is the Urbi amenities, but that also includes our Urbi Cafe, which is a public assembly. So it's not only for residents, but it is very much also for the public to use. So all 4 streets and all 4 corners have, like public functions facing the streets. And what you further see is that, like not the facades on the ground floor are not all in the same plane. We make small jumps, and we even have a scalloped portion of the facade on one corner to create differences in scale, some interest on the ground floor on a human scale level, and to create good, let's say, transitions between the street and the private. Then bottom left image shows the first 5 floors. So it's a brickwork building. The brick sometimes comes down to the ground, sometimes gives a little bit more room to the retail, and at some places it even gets tilted up another floor to emphasize the entrances towards the court and into the Urbi itself. And then top right image is where you see how we kind of build it up to the 12th floor. On the northeast corner, we kind of continue the brickwork to in a way landmark the building a little bit on that important, like pedestrian corner of N Place and of Yards Place and N Street. And it's also, the closest towards the subway station. And then the 2 wings on the side and along N Street and Yards Place have a small setback of 5 feet, and the one along Yards Place, like 2 floors down. On the 6th floor, you can see that in the middle right image, on the southwest touch, so first out, closest towards the stadium. We created a communal roof garden, so that is meant an we actively used roof garden for our residents, facing southwest, facing the views, letting the sun in, and it also, next to a pool and some garden facilities, it also houses the gym building as a specific, its own designed pavilion that kind of sits in the garden on the 6th floor. And then the bottom right image kind of concludes the whole, like massing of the whole building, including a penthouse floor along N Street. Next, please. I'm going to show you two rendered images to give it a little bit of context, and then I dive a little bit more into the plans and the materiality of each and every part of the facades. But this is northeast corner with the brickwork, let's say lower 5 floors, sometimes touching the ground. On this corner, going up all the way to the 12th floor, with some like additional penetrations in there for recessed loggias, some openings in the brickwork as well to emphasize the entrances towards the court. And of course, giving enough room to the retail scape on the ground floor. And then the two wings kind of set back 5 feet on the, let's say on the two sides. Next, please. And then this is the exact opposite corner, the southwest corner, facing the stadium. So here you can, you read the 5-story high brickwork building, again, giving it a lot of, like room for the retail on the ground floor, and then the activated roof garden on top of it, including the gym pavilion. Next, please. So this is the ground floor plan. Everything in blue is retail and our cafe. The gray area on the bottom would be the loading area and the parking entrances facing N Place. N Place is dedicated as a street for services. The yellow areas are the Urbi amenities and the Urbi entrance. And what you already can see here, also what you saw in those massing diagrams, is that it's not just one straight facade, but every like retail space and also the cafe, like sometimes they jog in a little bit from the face of the street of the sidewalk, or sometimes it's more scalloped, like you can see in the northwest corner, to give it some interest on streetscape as well. The sidewalks itself and all of the landscaping around the building is according to the whole like landscape design and street design of the whole area, of which some portions are already starting construction or have been started. I'm not sure, haven't been there in a year due to the circumstances. And then in the middle, you can find kind of the courtyard. So you see an entrance of N Street as well as of First Street. And there you kind of see how a green courtyard kind of sits in the in the middle of the block, obviously trying to create a contrast with the street, and more of a relaxed green hidden gem for the people to use. Next, please. So on the retail, we kind of try to design that carefully. We don't have just full glass facades, but we want to create like some transoms in there, some window sills in there. Sometimes the brick comes down to the ground where we feel it's needed. Sometimes it's tilted up to create entrances towards the courtyard. So there's refinement in the retail as well. We also designed canopies in there to create a transition between the street and the spaces inside. Next, please. And then further to the materiality of the base. So the retail, like I said, like it's an aluminum brown anodized facade. It has a little bit of materiality on the sill. It has the transoms on top. This is the scalloped portion where you can kind of see how the facade kind of jogs in and out, create some interest. And then we have also a bronze anodized canopy above it. And then the brickwork itself, we are looking into the direction of a, let's say, mid to darker gray brick. It's not a black brick. It's also not a dull brick, but it tries to find something interesting in between there. And then with the windows, they are anodized in a champagne brass tone. We like anodization because it's not just a flat paint, right? Anodization is a natural process, so it has a little bit of more interest and sheer to it in a way than just painted aluminum. The brass champagne also gives it a little bit more of a sophisticated addition to it, and then the brick kind of around it. We give it some detail. So the windows itself, first of all, to start, so they are not all the same dimensions, right? We work with a pretty strong, like pier system or grid system of the brickwork, but it gets alternated at points. Sometimes it is, like a double window connected to one another, so it breaks through the brick piers. Sometimes we make it denser, which mostly happens at bedrooms because like it's fine for the function behind the windows in terms of privacy. And then we have the more of the like smaller vertical windows, as you can see, filled in with brick next to it, but the brick is a little bit recessed from the main brick surface. We work with soldier courses on the bottom as well as above the windows and the parapet. And then in the windows itself, we have louvers that are metal louvers that are stretching the whole width of the window frame. It's in the same champagne anodization. It's integrated into the window design, and we have it there to also integrate kind of the different exhausts that we have. But we really want to detail that into the architecture and not have a separate, like outlets on the facade. Next, please. So another zoom in of specifically the retail in the base. This would be the northwest corner that shows the scallop facade on the ground floor. And then the next one would be on the southwest corner facing the stadium. And this is also an image more at night or at sunfall. Where like the way we want to treat the for instance the signage with some small lights on blade signs, etc. Keeps a little bit that whole storefront or retail area active, as well as obviously the openings towards the courtyard. Next, please. So speaking about the courtyard and the courtyard entrances and the gates that we have there, so you can see here that we kind of, like we took the brick facade, but we really lifted up a floor to emphasize the entrance towards the court. Above it, it gets further kind of announced by the fact that we have not windows above there, but well, actually they are recessed 5 foot, and we create these recessed balconies or these recessed loggias above the passage. And what we try to do with the design of this passage is that like the courtyard itself is a very green space. It really wants to be a contrast from the more buzzy streets on the outside into a much more silent and relaxed green space on the inside. Once you look into the passage, you can already see the green, and you can see that there's a complete different world happening there. There's a transition in grade as well. It suddenly becomes a wooden flooring, makes it much softer. But we also wanted to, like, help people a little bit that they go into a complete different world by creating this more of a, like rounded shape that like almost helps you forget a little bit, like the urban vibe before you enter the court. So it's a stucco walls. It has indirect lighting coming off the ceiling that kind of lights up the rounded shapes in the top. And it has gates, obviously, but the gates are integrated into recessed pockets into the stucco walls as well. So it's cladded with a metal mesh in the same color as the stucco. So it's kind of flush with the rest of the wall within the passage. Around the passage, we clad the facade in wood, vertical slats, so it gives a little bit of a more natural appearance before entering towards the green courtyard. Next, please. So these are some drawings explaining that further. Also, when the gate is closed, operational hours are between, I believe, 9 in the morning and 6 in the evening. So during daytime, when the evening falls, like most instances, the gate will be closed. It's a metal mesh fence. We have to integrate an escape door in there as well. So it's kind of tricky how we detail it, but with having all of the metal mesh, in front of it, we create one simple surface. When it's closed, but also when it's open. Again, like I said, it's integrated into pockets into the side walls to almost disappear once the courtyard is open. Next, please. A little bit on the courtyard design, which is designed by Tima together with Land Design. I'll speak for them a little bit. So we have different treatments in the on the flooring. It's a wooden kind of paving that leads from one entrance towards the other entrance in a curvy way. So in a kind of natural way, it guides people through the courtyard, well, into the courtyard and then again out the moment they want to. There's a water feature in there that kind of follows that direction as well. Then we have some hardscape 2 terraces. One is connected to our own Urbi Cafe, which we operate, but again, it's a public assembly which sits on the right side of the court. It also has a winter garden feature, so it's not only to be used, like during nice days, but also, like in colder months, like then still this space looks active because you can see people in the winter garden behind the glass. And when the sun a little bit peeks in, we just open up a door. And on the left side, you can see another terrace that is connected to a restaurant that is in the retail space of First Street. For the rest, there's a lot of green in there, a lot of vertical green, specifically on the northwest corner where we have some green hills and a lot of trees. And also the landscape designers worked carefully on creating a palette of green, that it's not only looking good during summer months, but obviously also we have winter greens in there to make sure that the whole year round, this is a nice escape and a hidden gem from the streetscape. Next, please. So here you see a rendered image of the court. So on the far left side is more of the vertical green. You can see the wooden paving in here. You can see some stone paving in here. And the winter garden, glass winter garden at the end. In terms of the materiality of the rest of the facade, so the whole ground floor is treated in the same brick as we have on the outside of the building. As of the second floor up to the 5th, it's a synthetic stucco treatment. Our whole concept with this court was to create almost like an Italian residential court. That's why we integrated a lot of balconies. The whole south facade, as you can see on the left, are recessed balconies, loggia type of balconies. On the other 3 facades, we have multiple Juliet balconies kind of squatted around the facade. We treat the synthetic stucco in a light green color, also referencing a little bit the maybe like an Italian court where you use those soft colors in these types of spaces. I know we all have, as architects, something against synthetic stucco. Essentially because we mostly know it from those large, like blind side facades of buildings. And then we have all of these expansion joints, and it always looks like, like the neighbor's going to build a building next to it, but it never happens. But in this instance, because we really felt we wanted to give it that stucco appearance, we felt like it would be appropriate. It's also a drainage system, so it's it's one of the better like versions of it, obviously. But with the amount of windows, with all of the different like balconies, with the small fences that we have detailed in there, and the limited amount of stucco altogether, and the high quality that we want to use, giving us like a limited amount of expansion joints, we felt that this was actually a great choice or a great solution to create a world here in the courtyard that is completely different from what's happening on the outside. Next, please. Yeah, so this is the let's say a part of the elevation. It's a section over the recessed balconies on the right, and then you can see the facade with the different Juliet balconies. The aluminum windows, as well as the steel fences, etc., are thought of in a little bit of a darker green, that matches with the lighter green of the stucco. And also we kind of detailed in a sheet channel profile that is between the brick on the ground and the second floor stucco, as well as at the parapet, to kind of, you know, break the larger surfaces of stucco and give it a little bit of an end detailing and a beginning detailing at the lower level, to break up the stucco and give it a little bit more of detailing interest. Next, please. So here are the floor plans of on the left, the level 2 to 5. So the full enclosed city block. You only see 3 small recesses that is at above the 2 entrances towards the court. So those are loggia balconies, as well as above the main entrance into Urbi itself. For the rest, it's just, you know, like full facades facing the streets, creating, you know, like full street walls, which we feel like is very important. And then as of the 6th floor, level 6 on the right, is where, you know, like the southwestern portion drops or stops in a way, and we only built these recessed portions, 5 feet recess on the north and the east side. In here you can also find the roof garden. Next, please. I think it's on the next one. Yeah, so the communal roof garden, so where the courtyard on the ground floor is public, and it works also very well with our public cafe. This is a communal space on the 6th floor. With Urbi, next to the fact that, you know, we try to be a residential building that is open to people, so that's why we make the cafe, and that's why we open up the court to you know, foster interaction with the neighborhood. Next to that, what's important for Urbi is you know, like a little bit of a you know, like promoting is maybe the wrong word, but facilitating for whoever wants a positive, healthy lifestyle. Garden spaces play a very important role in that. Again, it's a very green garden. We have, next to some barbecue pits and fire pits, we have garden lots for the residents to use. We have a cultural programming running within Urbi, and one of them is, you know, every now and then there will be farmers here to help you with your garden lots. But also exercising is a part of it, so that's why we, you know, made the gym a little bit more of a feature, instead of just putting it, you know, like in the darkest place of a building, which typically happens. So that's why we created this specific building on the southwest portion. It has a cross shape, a crucified shape, so it doesn't become too bulky, and it creates kind of pockets in a way where we have some vertical green in there, so it starts to blend in with the garden design as such. Next, please. So in its materiality, it's a corrugated metal facade. It doesn't have a straight corrugation, but it has more of a playful corrugation, as you can see on the top left image. It's again champagne anodized, so it creates a relationship with the window frames of the brick portion below it. And also, since we have an elevator overrun and some MEP integrated in there, we know we need to screen it, but instead of just making a separate screen in a different color or whatever, we kind of integrate that more into the building's architecture. So behind number 5 is the MEP equipment. Then there is a blind wall, so we won't be seeing it from the outside. And then we create on the outside a perforated facade. It's in the same profile as the facades below of the gym building. And there's a minor perforation, and we put some light behind it, and I think that's in the next image. Yeah, so we put a little bit of light behind it to have it, you know, lit up a little bit. It's really toned down. It's not like a full-blown lantern. It's really toned down, but we do want to give it a little bit of a sparkle and some point of interest to express a little bit the activity that could happen in there. Next, please. I think this is one of the, not one, but at least an important part of a small deviation that we are requesting here, that is in regards to the setback rules, and that is specifically for the balustrades. First of all, because we want to use like as much of the roof garden as possible and make it green space for the people, the residents, to use. Also, in order to reach the garden on the very southwest tip of the building, kind of in the crucified shape. We have a small, you can see it in enlarged section 1B, with a small pathway that leads to it. So therefore, we are forced to put the balustrades on kind of on the parapet of the brick building. It's not exactly on the parapet. It has a setback, a recess of probably 10 inches, but it doesn't really follow the one-to-one line. Same counts for the bulkhead on top of it. Since we created, made it part of the architecture, more part of the crucified sculpture of the gym building, also a little bit in the third dimension. There is one small portion which you can see in last section 1A at the bottom right, where we would not meet that one-to-one setback regulations. Next, please. And then we build up the building up to the top floor. So on the left, levels 7 to 10, what you find here is let's say the two wings of the building, which are 5 feet recessed, except for the portion on the northwest corner, where we kind of extended the brickwork all the way up to the top. Levels 11 to 12 show only the section along N Street, because we dropped the building 2 floors along Yards Place, because Yards Place only is 70-foot wide, more pedestrian-focused road. So we wanted to create a little bit more daylight and air in there. And then on the roof level, there's a penthouse floor. Next, please. So these, let's say, 2 upper wings are cladded in metal. We wanted to give it a relationship with the building below and not create something completely different, in order to, like still make sure it is, designed as a whole, and it doesn't become, too busy or too complicated with all kinds of different, like colors and materials and all. So we do continue kind of the pier rhythm of the base of the brick below, extend it up in a metal that is, we call it a little bit a gunpowder gray, but it is, again, between mid gray and anthracite gray, matching or getting, close towards the brickwork. Within that, again, we play a little bit with the windows. It's not all of the same window sizes, but it, it shows some differentiation. Like behind every window, there's also a different person. So one of the, like, ideas to make sure that it doesn't become officey, but it, it plays as a residential building. It has more, let's say, silver anodized windows in it, as well as more vertical louvers. So there's a little bit of a play between the windows and some vertical parts that are filled in with architectural louvers. And again, it also helps us to integrate the exhaust in there. And then at the ends of these wings, we also created, we kind of extended, like a part of the floor slab cover in a way, creating these balconies at the end of both wings, facing south and facing west. Next, please. And then the top roof level, showing the different green areas of green roofs, as well as solar panels, which we have on certain flat areas, so roof areas as indicated in here, as well as on vertical surfaces, where we need to make, of course, the screenings around all of the MEP and the bulkheads. So when facing south, they are cladded in solar panels as well. Rounding it up on the next image, just have a few more to go. Sorry, people, for the long story. But these are a couple of renders that kind of, like brings all of this whole story together. So this is the bird's eye view seen from the ballpark. Ballpark would be right at the bottom here. So we're kind of looking into the courtyard right now, and this image also shows the solar panels that we have on the south-facing screen walls of the MVP spaces on the top roofs. Next, please. The image you've seen before, so the brickwork, let's say city block, 5-story base, sometimes touching the ground, sometimes elevated up, lifted up in order to create entrances to the court and to the main entry into the building. The recessed balconies on top of it. Then we have, as of the 6th floor, the 2 recessed wings on the 2 sides. Also, there we have, like all of these, units on the 6th floor have their outdoor spaces there. We kind of continue it, as you can see, on the 6th floor in this sort of slot under the brickwork tower portion. So we extend the 5 feet setback there as well, connecting one wing with the other, and then on top of it, another 6 floors of brickwork treatment. And what you can also see here in the window pattern is that once it gets towards the top, in the brick facade, the windows we get a little bit more windows, a little bit less brick. So it kind of lightens up a little bit once we go towards the top floors of the brick portion. Next, please. And this is the view on N Street, facing, looking east. So here you can see, again, the 5-story brickwork building with the retail on the ground floor. And then the metal and glass portion on top of it, recessed 5 feet from N Street. And here you can also see kind of the end of the building with the balconies facing west. And then and right next to it, you can find the first portion of the roof garden. Next, please. And this is the view which you've seen before from the southwest corner, the roof garden on the 6th floor, the gym building integrated kind of into the roof, and then the active ground floor and the open, like glass retail corners, which we actually have on all 4 corners to activate the street fronts. And then on the right of it, you can see the loading area, the entrance towards the parking. Like we said, End Place is dedicated for that, but we did want to integrate that a little bit into the architecture. So we are, taking brickwork piers down to the ground. Sometimes they're filled in with louvers, or they're filled in with a door towards the parking. But the portions where that's not needed, we fill it in with brickwork, but it's recessed. So you do read, like the rhythm of the piers coming down to the ground, and give it at least, like some architectural detailing, including soldier courses and so on, to make sure that it is part of the overall building design. Next, please. And then this is the last image from Yard's Place looking north. So this is, let's say, the lower portion of the building. It's only, let's say, 5 floors on top of the brick base. But again, an open ground floor corner, street corner, retail corner, sorry. And the balconies on the top floors facing south, and with views towards the river, as long as the developments south of us are not happening. Next, please. I think we are there. Yeah, and then to conclude one more time, the aerial view.
Thank you so much, Eric. And I think that's our presentation, again, to sort of wrap up that we're here primarily for design review approval for the building height and density to reach a height of 130 feet, an FAR of 7.0. We're also here for flexibility from the guardrail setback requirements as we explained, and similarly for that penthouse above the fitness center, which is set back from some but not all the walls because of the shape of that fitness center. That's the zoning ask here. We're really pleased to be here with support from the Office of Planning and DDOT. OP had identified 2 items for us to work on for you, which was the courtyard entrance design and its operation, which we provided information on. They also asked us to provide information about the stucco material that's been chosen for the courtyard and why we believe it is indeed appropriate and a high quality material here, which we've addressed. And then finally, our friends at DDOT had asked us to submit an updated plan showing the location of the bike showers and lockers, which we did. And so that plan was submitted as Exhibit 22 of the record. The details on the courtyard are Exhibit 21 of the record. And finally, we're really pleased to be here with the support of ANC 6D. Their input was very valuable, and as a result of it, we made commitments regarding the courtyard, regarding the lighting of that penthouse above the fitness center, and integrated additional balconies into the building design, and all that's reflected in the plans. So I think with that, we'll conclude, and we're here and happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Avenable. We appreciate all the work you do. You come in with a ton of support, so that's a great start off, at least for me, and I'm sure others as well. So with that, let's go around and see if we have any questions or comments. I see we've been joined a while back by Commissioner May, so we'll start in our regular format. Commissioner May, unless you want to go last.
I don't mind going first.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot to say. Thank you for the exhaustive design presentation. I'm really exhausted, but that's probably just because it's been one of those days. And I was a little late getting here because the NCPC meeting was dragging on a bit. I don't have a whole lot to say about the design. I mean, you've been through Commission of Fine Arts, and I believe for GSA, you have to go through the Mina Wright filter, right? So
That's correct.
I'm not gonna pile on after Mina's had a few goes at it. I think the biggest, the concerns I would have had, I think, are to some extent the things that the Office of Planning had raised. I'm not a big fan of synthetic stucco, but it's clearly a very high class building, and so I don't think that you're going to be doing something cheap on it. So hopefully, the way it works out, it'll look fine. The area that usually is a concern for me is setbacks. And when I first started reading about this and didn't look at the images, it was all about, not being able to set back at the exercise room or whatever you call it. Ordinarily I'm not a fan of that, right? You have to meet the rooftop setbacks no matter what. But I have a different mindset when it comes to lower roofs within a building. And in this circumstance, it's arguable that what you are doing is you just have a portion of the building that is, has an additional floor, and as opposed to a penthouse. My concern about penthouses and setbacks and guardrails and setbacks has much, really just has to do with the tops of buildings and the things that make a 130-foot tall building look more like a 140-foot tall building or a 150-foot tall building. And that's not what we're dealing with here. So I'm okay with the relief that's requested. I see the value of it. And I think that overall, given that I don't see any opposition to it, I don't have any real big issues with the design the way it is. So I'm all talked out. Next.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Shapiro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that first as a comment, which is I thought it was beautiful. I thought that the building was elegant, creative. I mean, usually when I look at something like this, I think, oh my God, there's a lot going on. But it didn't feel distractingly busy. It felt like it was coherent with all that going on. So I commend you for that. I mean, really, I just thought it was a very elegant, creative building that transoms and all sorts of things. I appreciate the green building features and the creative use of solar. So a few quick questions. I didn't understand. Can we go back to that the penthouse slide where you were talking? I think it was slide 32. No, it's on it's third. I wrote down 32 because something you said 32. It's looking at the facade of the penthouse and the workout room. It was toward the end. I don't know why I said 32, but something said 32 on it because that's where I took my note. In the
I
lower
think it
right
might be
corner.
slide 25, maybe.
I think it said 32 in the lower right-hand corner.
Okay.
Clearly not. Yeah, that's okay. That's good enough. So what is that on the side of the penthouse? I just couldn't figure it out. Is that signage?
I think you're asking about the windows. It's
Is
the
that what it
windows.
is? It's just the
Yeah.
windows?
Yeah, I think the shiny thing next to the tree.
Well, there's the little square light thing.
That's yeah, that's a window.
Right, but then what's the rest of it?
And then there's a horizontal band of windows as well.
Okay, all right, I see it now. Okay, all right, I was just confused by that. And then related to that, you said something that I was also missing about the sparkle, the light that was going to shine through some of, I guess it was the mechanical screening. That's part of above the workout room. Is that what you were talking about? And you had a page that showed that, and I just didn't quite understand that either. How much light that was putting out, and because it didn't read to me like. Or maybe my computer, it just didn't read to me like it was emitting any light.
It's page 24. There.
Yes, yeah. Perfect.
Right.
So the pretty things up above, what does that tell me about what I'm looking at down below?
Right. Sean, you want to handle that?
Yeah. So the
I like the pretty things up above, by the way. They look very pretty.
So it's just the top piece just above the tree, and it's just intended to be a soft glow. Everything down below it is normal building facade material with no lighting.
So yeah, but it may be my rendition as I'm looking at my computer, but I don't see that at all down below.
I'm sorry. What don't you see below?
I don't see what looks backlit with light coming through.
Oh, there's nothing below that is backlit. It's only that top piece that is backlit. It's just that setback piece. I wish I could point.
I know the setback that's sort of above the tree, the corners above the tree.
Yes, exactly. That's the only piece that's lit.
And is it just that one wall that faces where the setback is, or is it the whole?
It's I think if you go to the next slide, 28.
And I just can't tell if like
I'm sorry.
based on this, if you're doing too much or not enough, right? Do you want it to be even more iconic and a little more lit?
So the white box on the left-hand fitness center, the wall that is there, the perimeter wall is what will be glowing.
Okay. So if there's, this is not by any stretch a go, no go issue for me, but I have no sense of how much that's glowing, I guess is my issue. But let me just leave that for now. The only other thing that I had a question about in the design, if you could just talk to me about it for a second, this was on, again, my version of slide 31. If you try to see if that goes to 31, 3 slides from where we are now, down in the lower right-hand corner. There. So when I look at that, I just can't tell. This is stepped back, right? I'm sorry, the top residential tower is stepped back.
Yes.
So on slide 33, if you go two slides more, Paul, there, that looks great. It makes sense to me. It feels coherent. And I don't know if it's just a perspective thing, but when I look at that on slide 31, it feels like the building's been cut off. If you can go back to 31, and maybe it's just the perspective on the slide, right? I'm just looking at the same thing. I'm looking at the opposite wings is all I'm looking at, right?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
all right.
yeah, I think it might just be a perspective thing. The building steps back 5 feet, and then on the tier that's facing you with the balconies, obviously the facade steps back from the balconies as well. So
Okay.
it might feel a little bit more step back.
It just looks fine on the other wing and not here, but I'm not gonna worry about that either. The last thing, and this is the only thing that I really had an issue with, which is that, what were the hours of the courtyard again? The public hours for the courtyard?
The
It's gonna
hours
be-
are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at a minimum, and as we sort of discussed with the ANC, during the summer months when the retail spaces are open, it could very well be open into the evening. But the ANC wanted sort of a minimum commitment, and so we worked with them to come up with that. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
9 a.m.
from
to
my
6.
perspective, the longer the better, as long as you're not intruding on the noise, too much noise for the folks who are living on the lower floor. So I'm not worried about that. So, and the real issue I had is, which was, I think, flagged a bit, is that metal mesh fence feels like, at least with what I'm presented with, feels like it really misses the boat. That, is there some way to have that be a creative feature? Even if it's closed at night, but it just looks so utilitarian as you presented it, and maybe it's just because you haven't quite figured out what to do with it. But I think it matters what you do with that, because I thought that courtyard entrance was absolutely beautiful, and I wouldn't want to see, like just a grate covering it up in the evening. I'm not sure what to do, but I didn't like what I saw. I think, yeah, that's all that I have, Mr. Chair, and apologies for going on so long.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turnbull.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, first of all, thank you for your presentation. Greatly appreciate the 94 affordable units in this project. I think it's a welcome, something that is needed, and I'm glad that you have gone the step beyond what normally we get when we see this. So thank you again. I think that is a very distinctive building. I think there are aspects of it which are very unique and very good. I guess one of the things which I didn't see in this, when we talk about the affordable units, is I didn't see a floor plan where the units might be. I only saw language that said, oh, we're going to space them out and put them wherever we can. I think, Mr. Abbott, we usually get a floor plan showing where the units go. And mainly we would like to see that because we don't like stacking, we don't like clustering, and I think we'd like to see how many of them are going to get balconies just like the regular units. So I would have liked to have seen that, and I'm not sure. I went through the drawing, but I couldn't find anywhere.
Right, so we typically don't submit them for the projects in the yards because the affordable housing regime is subject to a separate regime, and where the units are located is determined in part by that regime, and we don't want to create a situation where we've shown them in some locations. With that said, we anticipated the question. We have a set of plans that I can send over to Paul to bring up that we could show you and talk through if you'd like, because we anticipated you might ask that question anyway.
Yeah, I think Mr. Commissioner Miller might want to talk about it also, just to see what's going on. So we can take time. I'll keep going on, and then we can bring it up later. The lighted panel at the penthouse, the lower one for the exercise area. I shared some concerns with Commissioner Shapiro. I guess I would like, although I guess you say somewhere in here, trying to see what you talk about the lighting, and will not exceed the average amount of light emanating from the fitness center. I don't know. It won't get any brighter than the sun. I don't know what that means. I'd like to see something more definite, tie it to like a foot candle or a lumen. I mean, if the inside of the exhibition room is going to be, I think most exercise rooms are like normal, like 20 to 30 foot candles. I don't know on the in an exercise room. I'd like to see that tied down. I think you ought to make that a more reasonable estimate. You say it's dimmable, which means it could go higher. It means it could go lower. I mean, somebody could dim it up and say, hey, tonight's special, we're going to go up to 80-foot candles. We're going to make this thing glow. So I'd like to see something tied in that would maybe respect the neighborhood. And like I think it's been said by the ANC, they didn't want it to be too obnoxious. So I think you could tighten that up a bit. But other than that, I guess the only other thing, I like the idea of the little the village being created, the little interior going, the little tunnels going through. I think that's very exciting. I think we don't see that in a lot of our buildings. So I think going inside, the only thing is that when I see that concept and I see the tunnel going in, the only thing where I like to, I stood and I looked at the tunnel and I'm like, I see this tunnel, this arch tunnel, but then I see these two little windows up above. And to me, it just was like, it just struck me as that it, maybe not out of character, but it just seemed like I was expecting to have something more. If I'm going to be invited into this space on the inside, I wish there was something sort of like this, like an old not like an old medieval village where you come in and it's like arched and bricked and that. But I just wish there was something that would make me anticipate a little bit more what was going on. I know the light may draw you in, but to me, I just saw that the face of it, materiality could have been a little bit different, just to make it. I know you got these slats, and I thought maybe the slats could have been angled at the top or arch or herringbone or something that would draw me in to make me feel like this is going to be neat. And I want to see this. So I'm just throwing that out. It's your entrance, and I just said, but to me, I would like to have something more exciting to make me feel like, yeah, I want to go in here. I want to see what's going on. I'm trying to look at my notes here. Is this the first Irby building we've had in the city? Is this is the only one? That's what I thought. You have one in the East Coast? Or?
Josh, do you want to speak to? I believe was one or two up in New Jersey. I can't remember the other locations. But Josh,
New York, Connecticut, active pipeline in several other states.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Excited. I know when you were talking about the brick, and I looked at the CFA notes and said they wanted you to lighten it, and you said in your note said you have lightened it. I'm like, I wonder what this brick looked like when CFA looked at it. This must have been a really dark brick. This must have been almost black. I'm like, because it's still it's still charcoaly gray. I'm like, what the heck what color did it look like before? Anyways, I think it's an interesting building. I think I'm glad to see. The only thing is some of the flexibility, Mr. Outable. A lot of it reads like, sometimes I read these things about the flexibility, and it's like, well, you look at the building now, but it may not look like that when we're done. And I'm like, I don't like that. But I know what you're getting at on some of this flexibility. I think we've gone through some of these on other projects. So I think it's okay. The signage, there wasn't any really dimensions on the signage, but you have clearly highlighted on the elevations in graphic form how big and how small and large they would be. So I'm okay with that, even though it may change. Anyways, I think it'll be an exciting project. It's a lot of balconies. I think, Commissioner Miller loves balconies. So let him talk about that. But again, we'd like to, if we got balconies, I'd like to see that a lot of the affordable units also get balconies. I think that's part of the unanimity that we like to see in a building where we get this feeling that we're all the same. So are all treated the same anyways. But I think, Mr. Chair, I'll end that for now and turn over to Commissioner Miller, but I would like to see the floor plans if Mr. Avenel can bring them up at some point with Commissioner Miller.
Great. And we sent them over to Mr. Young, so whenever the commission would like, we can talk to them.
Okay, thank you.
So while Mr. Turnbull is doing his questioning, Mr. Young, do we have him so we can bring him up now? Or do we need to wait until
Yeah,
all of us
I have
finish?
I
Okay,
have
let's
them.
let's bring it up now.
Great. So what you'll see here, and I don't know if Sean, if you want to speak through these along with me here, the units in blue are the affordable units, and then the other units in orange are the units that are not designated as affordable. So Sean, maybe you want to sort of talk through going up over the couple of levels, which units are affordable, and highlight where units might have access to a balcony or a terrace as well.
Yeah, sure. So you're exactly correct. The light blue units are designated as the affordable, and I think we've gone through this before. So what we tried to do was evenly distribute these units throughout the building, and on sides and unit types and things like that. So we've tried to establish a very evenly distributed location for all of these units.
All right, so if we can go to the next page, Mr. Young. Great. So this is as you're coming up to floors 3 through 5. So this is again the base of the building, and you see they're sort of evenly distributed between the interior courtyard and the outside face of the building. You can see here one of the 3 units facing the courtyard that has that nice sort of balcony. It is an affordable unit. And then maybe go to the next page, please. So this is up on level 6, and you can see again you've got an affordable unit on facing west that has access to one of those terraces, a couple on the inside that have access to the terraces, and it'll be really nice sort of facing the courtyard, and then on the east side as well. And go to the next. So here this is floors 7 through 10, and you see again you've got on that west side of the building one of the 3 units on that nice end with the balconies, is one that has a balcony access, and again one on the east as well. And maybe there's one more level, I guess the 11th floor. Let's see what we have up there. And then here on the 11th floor again, you have a couple even in the uppermost floor of the building that are affordable. So it's distributed, sort of similar to the way we would do it for any building. There are more units here because we're at 20% set aside as affordable, but you do get them spread throughout the building and on all sides, and some with balcony access.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. All right, Vice Chair Miller.
Thank you. And thank you to the applicant for your presentation and all of your engagement with all of the Washington, D.C. alphabet agencies in this project, starting with the ANC, 60, and Office of Planning and DDOT and CFA, SHPO, and GSA, the rest of it. I concur with all the comments of my colleagues, and I appreciate particularly Commissioner Turnbull raising a lot of the issues that I would raise about affordable housing and balconies, because I'm having some technical issues here tonight, and I think he raised them very well. I think it's very, I think the yard disposition project overall, with its 20% set aside at 50% median family income, no greater than 50% and no less than 20% set aside, is really a model, and that we're trying to drive toward with a regular inclusionary zoning and enhanced inclusionary zoning and IZ extra plus zoning that we're getting to. So I just wanted to have you reiterate for the record, just because I saw different numbers, I think, in your own memoranda and the Office of Planning's and the original application, what the number of units. I realize there's some flexibility being asked for, as always asked for by applicants in final numbers, but just from where we're starting out from today, at least at this hearing, we're at 466 total units and 94 set aside at affordable rates of no more than 50% median family income. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, and again, you know, we're able to do that affordable housing set aside in part because of the unique nature of this site being a former federal site that's exposed, and you know, that is part of a development agreement, and it's sort of conditioned on, you know, us getting the tax credit financing that allows for that affordable housing, but it's a key part of the development, and all the buildings and the residential rental buildings in the yards have had the same level of affordable housing.
Right. And right, thank you for that. And I thank you for your engagement with ANC. You've agreed to all of the commitments you made in your memo to them on April 9th. I guess that's attached to their own ANC report. Is that just correct? You're maintaining those commitments that were made in that memo?
That's right, and we integrated the hours of the courtyard and the commitments regarding the lighting of the fitness center into the conditions as well.
And I would have preferred to see even more balconies, as Commissioner Turnbull noted. I also want to see more balconies. I realize, I see that the Irby has a concept about communal shared space, which is always very important, but as we've all learned, particularly during this last pandemic year, but I think everyone appreciates private outdoor space as well is very important. And it also just makes, from a design standpoint, a building in this formerly industrial area look more residential, even though it's trying to preserve all that industrial past, and does so very well, I think, with this particular design. But let me just ask one question about transportation. You've agreed, you may have said this in your presentation, or it might be in the materials. You've agreed to all of the PDM measures that CDOT recommended in their memo, included some additional strategies, I think, as well at the end of their memo, which I now can't seem to find or computer.
My recollection was that DDOT recognized, you know, we had committed a number of things in our study, and they agreed to them. Erwin, if you're on and you want to sort of chime in on further details, but they sort of agreed to our commitments there, everything that we had proffered, and so we were actually on the same page from the start, which was a good thing. We're getting better at giving them what they'd like.
Yes, that's correct, Dave. On page 3 of the DDOT report, their conditions consist of implementing the TDM that we proposed.
Right.
So you're correct, Dave.
I do see that now. And so, I mean, you have a lot of parking, which they acknowledge on this site. I mean, the site is currently surface parking, 188 or something, which someone's memo, DDOT's and your own, I think, said is used it's temporary surface parking used by, I guess, office workers in the area and National Stadium patrons during game days or events. But I think I read somewhere in the DDOT memo or your own materials, and I've read this before, and I brought this up with you, Mr. Andrews, before, and I'm never sure if I've really gotten an answer to the question. So none of the space, none of the 188 that are currently being used for temporarily surface parking for office in the area or national patrons, stadium patrons. None of the new spaces, 200 and what is it, 254 or what was it?
244, I think.
244 underground new spaces. All of that is going to be, which is beyond what we require in zoning, which is 0, and is beyond what DDOT says they typically see in this type of mixed-use development, in this type of area, proximity to metro and everything else is about 90. None of the 240-something new spaces are going to be used by any of the existing users of the surface parking. And why is that? Well, I remember that the ballpark stadium transportation plan talked about all these temporary surface parking lots in the area that were awaiting these wonderful mixed-use developments that were going to happen, and that the underground parking would satisfy some of the parking needs that the temporary surface parking is currently providing. Has it all worked out so beautifully that there's not people riding around in neighborhoods looking for parking that isn't available anymore in these mixed-use underground spaces? I think when I've gone to the games, seems like a very long time ago now. I've gone mostly by metro, but I did go a couple times by car. I think I parked underneath an office building that I think is currently being redeveloped. But can you comment on what is happening here? Maybe we need a separate thing of what's happening in this whole area with transportation and parking, because I thought the plan originally was that these mixed-use developments were going to partially satisfy the demand by the existing or new office and the existing and new stadium.
Commissioner Miller, I understand what your question is, and relative to DDOT policy, a lot of these new developments that are taking place in the yards and in sort of the whole Capitol Riverfront area, DDOT has identified in their coordination with us that a lot of the parking that could be available for sort of outside users that include National Stadium visitors, they've asked us not to provide that parking for Nationals for Nationals games, and it's pretty explicit in their report. So in that respect, we're trying to comply with what DDOT is asking for. Now, relative to the existing users, a lot of the existing users in the garage on the surface parking lots are many of them are actually contractors. Many of them are construction contractors that are working on as you know, many of the significant number of construction projects going on in and around Southeast. So that there's an expectation that at some point when all the construction or most of the construction is done, a lot of those contractors will no longer need or use those spaces. But I do understand your comment, and unfortunately, as DDOT has identified, it's their opportunity to incentivize those going to the ball games not to drive, and so it's a consistent theme that we've experienced with all of the redevelopment projects down at the yards and in the area that we're dealing with.
And I think I'd add that at least my perception has been that DDOT is as focused on the day-to-day workers as they are on baseball parkers. That what they're really focused on is sort of making sure we're not continuing to incentivize day-to-day commuters to drive and park and instead use other modes of transit. But yeah, I mean, it's been in every project we've done, Parcel G, Parcel I, Parcel F, and now Parcel H, DDOT insisted in every one of those TDMs that we make a commitment that we wouldn't, lease spaces to anyone other than the users of the building, and we've done that because that's their directive and the approach that they're taking here.
Okay. Maybe DDOT, if they're thinking tonight, give comment on that as well. I don't want to turn this into a yard parking issue, but I just the spillover effect into the neighborhood when the games come back to 48,000 or 40,000, whenever. I just want to make sure that there isn't that potential, that there isn't neighborhood parking problems happening as a result. So thank you very much. It's an exciting project. It's good to see projects still moving forward in this day and age. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, sure, thank you. I just have a few questions. We want to move as quickly as possible because we don't know who may vanish because of the storm. Let me just ask, the CFA letter, do you have to go back in front of CFA or are you fine? I know they mentioned they're looking forward to seeing you in other parcels, but are you fine as far as Parcel H for CFA?
Oh, we are.
Okay, good. I do share the concern, Ms. Avenable, about the flexibility issue, and I know we can work out some language to a certain point. Some of it's standard, and I know some of it's a lot. It looks like it's a lot of flexibility that's being asked for. I think the way it's being presented right now, I think one of my colleagues said how beautiful it was. I would have to agree. I really like this building. Once I saw the entrance into the courtyard, I forgot to look at everything else because I really liked the way that went. But I do have to agree with Commissioner Shapiro. I was fine with it until I saw the gate. When I saw the gate, I said, but then as I watched through the presentation, I said, nothing's going to be all the way perfect. That's what they have to do to close it off. I guess it's going to be at night after 6, so I can live with that. But I would ask you to revisit it, but that's not a showstopper for me. It just really takes that whole spot to me down. But when it's up, it looks great. I do have a programmatic issue, a concern. What happens when it's open and there's a day game? You want public access? Is that going to be managed, or anybody? I mean, how is that going to work?
Josh, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. I mean, we're gonna have to actively manage that courtyard, right? Provide security, manage occupancy, like you would kind of any retail space or any outdoor space. We haven't experienced the game in that courtyard, so I won't say that we know exactly how we'll go about that, but it's something that we're committed to do to make sure that it's safe and the occupancy levels are maintained appropriately for code and other reasons.
I would strongly encourage you to do that because I will tell you this is a fabulous looking building, and if I saw that, everybody's going to gravitate, and you're going to have I don't know if it's fire codes or whatever else, but you're going to have a lot of people trying to get in there. So I would also encourage you to continue to look at that. It's not that, again, that's not a showstopper. The other thing, let's see what it was. It looks like you agreed with all of the ANC, DDOT. They referred to looking at your letter, Mr. Avenable. It looks like all that's been agreeable. And let me also commend the applicant on having so much support. This area has been going through a major development, and all the times it doesn't come in like this. This was very refreshing, very different sometime to see. I don't know of any opposition. We may have some later, but I haven't seen any opposition that's been proposed to the record. Now, I already know what you've done for affordable housing, and I've asked this. I'm starting to ask this now. This is just an ask to look at. And I have done my own research trying to figure things out and how this works. I know that you've done a lot with the affordability of this project. But one of the things that I have found that have been the showstopper for people who need it the most of actually being able to get in some of these units was credit scores. Credit scores is nowhere in the zoning code. You can just ignore me if you want to, but I would ask that we start looking at, this is one of the things that I'm gonna start trying to push. I'm gonna work with all the experts and see what we can do so we can really get affordable housing. I believe this city has a lot of affordable housing. We say we're short on it, but I believe we have it, but people that need it don't qualify for it. And I think that's something that, even if you look at one unit, and I've been thinking and talking to some folks about maybe if the district would back up. I don't even know if they have plans. I need to work with Councilman Bonds and some others to try to figure this out. But I can just tell you that I believe that it's where we're missing a lot of is because people don't qualify. So if we could have something to back people up with low credit scores, like they do with some of these other programs, then maybe that would be helpful. So I'm just asking you to look at it. I'm gonna start asking everybody. Somebody's gonna come up with a solution and fix it all. I don't know who it's gonna be, but I'm just asking you to look at it. Even if you did one unit, Ms. Abigail, I don't know, and this is just an ask. But on the top, through all of that, I will tell you that I think that this project is great. I really like it. So I continue to do it. I'm just concerned that with the flexibility, I don't want us to diminish any of the materials that are used, but I understand if there's a rationale or reason because of all the affordability that you put into this high class building, as I think Commissioner May mentioned, then sometimes those things have to be done. So I understand that. I would just ask, again, our councilor, Mr. Abigail, you all work with that flexibility issue. I'm sure Mr. Turnbull, when we get ready to deliberate, we will deal with that at the appropriate time. All right, so I don't have any more questions. Again, I think job well done, especially with getting all the necessary support, which made our jobs just even a lot easier. So thank you. Any follow-up from anybody? Okay, let's go to Ms. Elliott, and I believe we have Mr. Zimmerman. Ms. Elliott from OP and Mrs. Zimmerman from DDOT.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Brandis Elliott, representing the Office of Planning. The Office of Planning is recommending approval for the requested design review. We do support the setback relief that's been requested for the guardrail and for the mechanical penthouse. We also support the condition that the applicant and the ANC have agreed upon regarding the courtyard being open to the public. We did ask for some additional information in our report from the applicant regarding the use of synthetic stucco, as well as some additional information about the courtyard, just to fully understand how public and how open they intend to make it. And I think the applicant has addressed both of those issues sufficiently, and so we continue to recommend approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to Mr. Zimmerman, is there anyone here from ANC 6D? Does 6D have any cross-examination? I just want to make sure I call for it. Okay, I don't think we have anyone here. Do we have anyone? Okay. All right, Mrs. Zimmerman.
Good evening, Chairman Hood and members of the commission. For the record, I'm Aaron Zimmerman with the District Department of Transportation. DDOT is supportive of the applicant's proposal for Parcel H. In our May 21st, 2021 report, we noted that the applicant has committed to a robust TDM plan and that we are in concurrence with it. We also requested in our report that the applicant provide a graphic showing where the zoning required showers and lockers will be located. The applicant has provided this in Exhibit 22, and DDOT is satisfied with what is shown. With the agreed to TDM plan as outlined in our report, DDOT has no objection to the approval of this design review application. Thank you.
Everyone, thank you both, Ms. Elliott and Mrs. Zimmerman, for your presentation. Ms. Elliott, let me just say this while I have you. I want you to know that I won't mess your name anymore because I have another person in OP's name I'm messing up now. So it's not you, so I've moved on. So just wanted you to know that. Side note. Okay, Commissioner May, you have any questions of either OP or DDOT?
I do not.
Commissioner Shapiro, any questions of either OP or DDOT?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your report.
Mr. Terman, any questions?
None here, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and Vice Chair Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, thank Ms. Elliott and Ms. Zimmerman for your reports. Mr. Zimmerman, do you have a quick comment on my question to the applicant about DDOT's requirements that all mixed-use developments that are replacing all these temporary surface parking, which is partially providing parking for national events, cannot be used for national events? Are you all analyzing? I mean, we realize we've had a weird year and a half, but before that and going forward, are you analyzing whether there's sufficient replacement parking for the vehicles that do arrive at the stadium, even though we want to incentivize public transportation and bicycle transit and other modes, because that was originally part of the, I think, approved baseball transportation management plan for the ballpark. That's many years ago. So, yeah, comment.
Yeah, so with all these different parcels in the yards that have been developing, our strategy has been to not do a one-to-one like replacement of the lost parking, for Nats game or stadium goers. What I think what's unique, slightly unique with this Parcel H project is that it's a residential project. So if you were to, with the parking that's coming with it, there's really not going to be any available parking in the evenings in the building for, with residential use and the people who live there parking there. But when it comes to the other office buildings and retail and those types of mixed use buildings in the yards, we're not necessarily precluding using that parking for, baseball stadium goers. A lot of the parking, is really intended for like the retail that's coming in on all these different parcels. And, there's not necessarily any restriction that ballpark goers can't use that. It would just be, it wouldn't be surface, it would be underground, and it would be priced by the hour or however other retail users are being treated. So in that respect, there is some replacement parking coming back, but not, I'm not 100% sure if it's, the same amount that's going away. So, but generally that's been our strategy, has been as these buildings come in, don't directly replace the parking. And we're trying to encourage, like you said, transit usage to get here. This is a really transit rich area, but there will be some that comes back in the form of like retail parking that people park, shop, go eat, and then go on to the ballpark. It comes in with the offering.
Okay, well, I appreciate that answer and that clarification to my own question, which implied that you were precluding them offering any parking to baseball users, which I think I've used actually in other, maybe not new developments, but existing office buildings. Maybe the one that DDOT was in. Down there. Anyway, I appreciate that answer. As long as it's being evaluated to make sure there's not a spillover effect in the residential neighborhoods of on-street parking, because as your own report and their report states, there's much more parking than being provided here than is required under the zoning regulations that would normally be suggested by DDOT in a similar type of project with its proximity to Metro, more than what's needed actually by the residential and retail users sites, in terms of, because we want to provide incentives to use the public. So anyway, thank you for your answer, and sorry for prolonging that, Mr. I was wondering what was going on there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to other government reports. other than CFA, I didn't see anything. If somebody could flag me if they saw something I didn't see. Second, we pull up the A&C report. We do have, first of all, does the A&C have any cross-examination of either Office of Planning or DDOT? And I don't think we have anyone on the line from the A&C 6D. So, okay, so I call for it. Now I'll go to the A&C report. It's our exhibit number 13. The ANC, and I'll just read the last part. ANC 6D, request of the applicant adheres to the comments and requests of the commission as addressed via the memorandum sent from Goldston and Stores on April 9th. Mr. Avidable has already mentioned that they're going to do that, and this sign they voted in support 7-0 to support this design review applications 21-06, and the and it's signed by Chairman Edwards and Chairman of ANC 6D, Navy Yard, Buzzard Point in Southwest DC. Okay, move a little faster here. Michelle, do we have anyone signed up to testify in support or opposition or undeclared?
I just want to check with the applicant if Mr. Banks from GSA, if that was part of their team.
So Mr. Banks is here and really was signed up and available to answer if there were any questions about the GSA piece of this, but otherwise, you know, much as with Parcel F, we can.
Okay, and one other person, I just, Brookfield Properties, Toby, is that person part of the team?
Part of our
also? Okay, so in that case, there are no witnesses registered to testify this evening.
Okay, excuse me. So with that, Mr. Avidable, you have any closing? I don't think you have any rebuttal. You may, but do you have any closing?
Yeah, well, I was looking and sort of chatting with the team on the side here to see if we could come up with perhaps, you know, a precedent image or something on what we were thinking on the gate to possibly address that and some of the other comments this evening. I'm not sure I'm seeing that. I did want to take a moment just to speak about the conditions of approval, the flexibility. This flexibility that we've listed here is the sort of standard flexibility, and it's consistent with the same flexibility that we've proposed and the commission's approved in the other cases. I mean, that just 3 months ago that we got approved for Parcel F. So there's a lot of words here, but it's actually pretty, I think it's pretty tight, and it really does constrain us in what we can do to only things that are sort of minor changes that are driven because there's a code issue. We're certainly happy to revisit any of it if there's sort of a specific area where you're particularly concerned, but it's all about trying to balance providing you all with the assurances that we know you want, that the building we've shown you is the building you're going to go out and see in 3 years. With the sort of reality of as design evolves, little things move here or there, and we have to sort of be able to adjust them to accommodate, you know, a new louver that's needed for the parking exhaust, that sort of thing.
So, Mr. Avidable, I appreciate your response to at least my concern. I don't know where Commissioner Shapiro is, but I'm fine with that as long as it's germane to the same kind of language that we've been doing, and I'm sure our council will flag us if not. I'm fine with your response, Commissioner Shapiro.
No concerns, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mr. Avidable?
Well, Commissioner Turnbull also raised that.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Turnbull. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm okay with that. I think if Mr. Avidable could work with Mr. Riddick, Mr. Tondro, I think Mr. Riddick especially works on the language, and I think they've worked together before. So I think whatever, Mr. Riddick's well aware of what my concerns are and what the commissions are. So I think they could work together and make it amenable to everybody.
Great.
So, Mr. Turnbull, I'm sorry, oversight. I forgot you are the zoning commissioner's flexibility commissioner, and I overlooked you. So I forgot. All of us have different titles that we stick.
I thought it was the I thought it was the signage guy.
Well, that too. You have. I was going to ask you, are you fine with the signage? But I heard your comment on that. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's workable.
Okay. All right.
There was also, as you know, there's one vote here. I only made a note about, I imagine the the gate issue was the metal that Commissioner Shapiro was referring to. Is that correct? Is that what you were referring to as the metal gate? The lighting on the fitness center, Commissioner Turnbull, is that what you're saying you're okay with, that OAG could work on the language on that? Is that because you wanted them to tighten that up? Is
Yeah,
that-
I don't know how you tighten that up. I would say maybe a foot candle reference or aluminum. I'm not sure how you really do it, but maybe Mr. Adable, Mr. Reddy can work on that.
Well, and part of that is the lighting language that we have and sort of the description. That was a part of the discussion with the ANC. With the ANC, if we gave them something that was lumens, they'd say, we don't know what that means. And so when
Right.
we said to them, look, it's not going to be any brighter than, the fitness center itself or, the apartment units, the lights emanating from them. That was something that they were able to understand. And our point to them was, we have people that are going to be living directly around this, looking at it.
Right.
We're not going to want it to be any brighter. And that's what ultimately got them comfortable.
And you
Okay.
weren't looking for them to provide anything else at the entrance when you said maybe something more exciting. You weren't actually looking for a submission.
I'm just throwing that out, that if they get a
Okay.
chance and they're going to tweak things later on as they go forward.
Okay.
Just throwing that out as a little mind fart that it could have something to think about.
And nothing is necessary with regard to when it's a game day as far as the courtyard. That's really just for them
that
to
was just
take care of.
that was just a flag and for them to have a consideration, which they've already admit they're going to do. I think that whether I mentioned it or not, they're going to do that anyway.
Okay.
Right. And actually, that was the same comment that Commissioner Litsky on the ANC had, that exact same comment, what's going to happen during game days.
Okay.
I hope he's watching because great minds think alike then.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Redding has showed up, so anytime OAG shows up, there may be a comment. Mr. Redding?
No comment.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, anything else, Mr. Turnbull? We good? Mr. Adable, have you finished your closing? Or
I'm just waiting to see if I was hoping that our team might be able to pull up some sort of precedent image of what the gate actually is going to look like to maybe potentially give you all some comfort this evening. But I don't know that we have the ability to do that. So I think we'll have to, unless someone tells me from our team, we have something we could bring up and show.
I think for me, I know I was second, but again, for me, I can, after everything else is going on, all other moving parts, I'm fine. I don't know where Commissioner Shapiro is because I definitely don't want to be. Let me see what Commissioner Shapiro is.
I'm fine, Mr. Chair. Again, I just think it's a beautiful building and I just want this gate to not detract from it, but I imagine nor do you.
Right. So, Mr. Adable, you'll be back in front of us many times after this. We know that you'll take care of it. If it's doable, as we said, let's get it done. If not, then I think we understand. I don't want to speak for Commissioner Shapiro, but I think we at least understand.
Excellent, thank you. Then the other thing I'd ask in closing, if we have otherwise addressed your comments and concerns, and would be that if appropriate, if the commission could consider a summary order here, since there isn't any opposition.
I think that is, as long as we put all the necessary things in that summary order, I think that is right in line with making sure we don't get too backed up. And I think with everything that's going on in this case, I think it warrants a summary order. I want to throw that out and see if any of my colleagues object. Okay. All right. So, anything else, Ms. Abbott?
No, thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, I want to thank you and your team for your presentation tonight, and especially your architects with the very, as Commissioner May said, a very exhaustive presentation. So greatly appreciate it, and I mean really exhaustive. But it was good. Let's see, commissioners. It's on our table now. I don't see any reason to hold this up until another day. I think this is flavored just right, and if we all agree, I will entertain a motion from somebody to accept before the storm starts.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that pre-storm zoning commission approve case number 21-06 Southeast Center, the Yards, Parcel H, and ask for a second. Design.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Ms. Shelley, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Miller,
He's having
Commissioner-
second thoughts.
Commissioner Miller.
Well, the storm
I
got
think
us.
the storm got him. Commissioner Shapiro,
I vote yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Turnbull,
Yes.
Commissioner May. Sorry, I should have
Yes.
called Commissioner May earlier.
Yes.
So the vote's 5-0. Commissioner Miller moving, Commissioner May seconding, and that's to approve final action in case number 21-06. If we could have that draft summary order within 2 weeks or
Certainly.
sooner.
Sooner as possible too. I'm supposed to theoretically be on vacation after next week, so I will aim to get it even sooner if possible.
Thank you. And then that should mean we will get that order out sooner. Thank you.
Excellent.
Michelle, I think Vice Chair Miller is back on.
Commissioner Miller, we were just confirming that you moved that motion. Yeah, he's not. But I think
Okay,
the
well.
record will reflect that he
Yeah, he
did.
made the most, right.
Yes,
Okay, anything else, Michelle?
nothing else.
All right, I want to thank everybody for their participation tonight. Let me just say the zoning commission will be meeting again this coming Thursday, which I believe is June the 7th. We have a hearing, which is zoning commission case number 20, and what I opened up doesn't have the last part. Anyway, tune in at 4 o'clock. Michelle, you're gonna say, is it a meeting Thursday?
We have two hearings on Monday,
Okay.
2026A and 2024.
Thank you very much. And the zoning commission will be on at 4 o'clock on these same platforms. So with that, I want to thank everyone again for their participation tonight. And this hearing is adjourned, and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.